this is St Randall's School. Around about, when would that be? Oh, I'll go back to my granddad actually, I've got a bit about him. James, Grandad James, he'd fought in the First World War. And he was one of these that lied about his age, so he went to fight at 16. And he got gassed and he lived the rest of his life with one lung. But he worked as a postman when he came back on the common. Right, Dad, that's that little boy in the front row on there. His dad with the ears that stick out. Dad told us loads of stories of his life when he was growing up as a boy. He was very proud of the fact that he had an owl. I don't know how he came by it, but it wasn't caged, and it would apparently sit and ride on the handlebars of his bike as he rode around the common. And it was free to come and go as it pleased, and one day it just decided to fly off. One of the other things they did, Dad and his friends did, or so-called friends, they dangled him off a steep ledge down in the Hudnall's Wood and nearly strangled him. Right. Yeah? Oh.
That's one of my girls. That's one of my uncles.
Which one? That one? This one? That one there? There should be Mostyn Aldridge on here as well.
That's your uncle.
Who is it, Robert?
Your Michael. Yeah, you know. Yeah.
Right. That's another one. That's Dad in his teens. Right. Dad loved cycling, and it was a great passion of his. I think that was taken on Vicksburg Bridge. When he won a scholarship to Bell's Grammar School, and to be able to make the journey every day, he was given a Hercules bicycle just to make that journey from St Randall's Common to Colford every day. Can you imagine children doing that now? They can barely walk from one end of the village up the hill. Anyway, when he was 12, him and a friend cycled to the Sugarloaf, and they slept overnight when they were 12 on top of the Sugarloaf. And when Dad died, he wanted his ashes specifically to go half up on the Sugarloaf and half in the Hudnall's Wood. So that's that. And when he was older, I remember this quite well, he cycled Land's End to John of Groats in 10 days. He was probably in his 40s then. Right, one of his jobs as a boy was to fetch water from the well down the wood. And somebody, the picture's gone all big, Nick, but that's all right. Somebody tried to stop access to the well down in the wood, and all the commoners got together and they fought this, and they regained their access to the well. It was their only way of getting to it. And this is a party that they had to celebrate. Where's Glenys?
I'm here.
See the very stern lady? Where is she?
They're all stern.
Glenys Walker, where is she?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Right, see the very stern-looking lady with the hat? She was Anne Thomas,
Right.
who is related to Glenys's husband, I think, because she was a Thomas, but she married a Williams, so she is my great-grandmother. Or was. I never met her. Right, they didn't have electricity back then when Dad was a boy, so one of his jobs was to light tilly lamps. And the electricity didn't come around here, or water, until the 1950s. One was 56 and one was 58, which was quite late compared to the rest of the country. Right, Dad always had this love of the Hudnall's Wood. And between 1966 and 77, preparations were taking place as a result of the Commons Registration Act of 1965. after the Hudnalls. The Act required that all common land had to be registered, otherwise it would be lost. The Hudnalls Wood, of course, was common land, the rights of which had been granted way back in the 1100s, when the then Earl of Hereford's wife is said to have procured these rights for the parishioners by riding naked on a horse in the manner of Lady Godiva. A band of locals, Dad included, set to work to make sure the Hudnalls was registered and collected every piece of evidence they could find, going back to 1139, to present to the Chief Commons Commissioner, G.D. Squibbs, who held a hearing at Shire Hall in Gloucester on the 10th and 11th of February 1977. Needless to say, they won the case, and hence to this day we can still walk, collect wood and graze our animals in the Hudnalls. Right, in latter years, Dad did even more research, and by 2009 he collated all this information into a book to be preserved should they ever be required for any future legal challenge. Copies of these are held in the Public Records Office in Kew, the Gloucester Records Office, and he distributed physical copies. I don't know how many you've got physical copies here. Yeah, a few people. And if anybody's interested, I have PDF copies that I can let anybody have if they're interested. So perhaps you could jot down your emails and let me know. Right, during this time they were raising funds for the court case, and Dad had this great idea that I could wear a body stocking and ride a horse to the bread and cheese to collect money, Lady Godiva style, as did the Earl of Hereford's wife. Well, I was well up for doing this. But I was only about 15 or 16 at the time, and my mum put a dampener on things and wouldn't allow it. Right, okay. That brings me to my mum and her family. Okay. My mum is the little girl here on the right-hand side. Her name was Hunt, and she was born at Spring Farm on Brockwell Common. Mum was born on the 4th of March 1932, and that was the birthday she always celebrated, but apparently she was actually born on the 5th. It was just that Granny Hunt had gone into labour on the 4th, and that was the date she was told was her birthday. She was one of 7 siblings. The youngest one wasn't born when that photograph was taken. She was one, yeah. And my granny was from Gethley. She'd come to the area because she was one of 14 siblings. She'd come to the area to go into service in Park Farm at the end of Park Lane. And that's how she came to the area and met my grandchild, we called him. Right, Spring Farm. This is my granny outside Spring Farm. As I said, it was just a 2-up, 2-down cottage with a lean-to scullery. And there were 3 boys and 4 girls. The 4 girls all slept in one bedroom, and the 3 boys slept in the other bedroom, just screened off with a curtain from my granny and grandchild in their bed. That's how everybody wouldn't be heard of today, would it? Right. Grandchild was a dairy farmer, and he did the dairy rounds on a horse and cart. Now that's not Grandchild there. That is the young boy is that would be a great uncle of mine with the horse on Spring Farm that he used. He used to. This story was that each New Year he'd go wassailing all around the area on his milk round, and he'd get so drunk that they'd just tip him on the back of the cart, and the horse would just bring him home. And that was the very horse that used to do that. Right, that's my mum when she was a teenager. Mum went to Brockwell School. She left at 14 and went into service at a house called, I don't know who lives there, but apparently she's in this room now, a house called Sitting Green. She went into service there, and later she worked at Williams and Cotton's, which has already been mentioned here in the village. Yes. Yeah. You remember her being there? Yeah. Anyway, she met Dad whilst they were playing table tennis at a table tennis club here in the assembly rooms. Oh. They married in 1956, and I was born 2 years later. That's me, and my dad. That's me and my Granny Hunt on Spring Farm. Right. When Mum and Dad first got married, Dad couldn't drive, so they had to leave the area. They went down to Newport to live, and they were in a flat in Newport for a while, and that's where they were when I was born. So I was born in St Woolas Hospital, which means I have claim to a Welsh passport. They then moved to Caerleon, and eventually, when I was 4 years old, they managed to buy Woodspring Cottage, which is now this Belfield, and that is how it looked when they bought it. Very different now. Dad would cycle to Newport for work, and then when he finally passed his driving test, that meant he could come back here, and then he used to drive to Newport every day for work. One of my memories is being, well, I would say I was christened in Cowshit. we were next to Spring Farm, which was my grandfather's place, and I remember being a very tiny little tot, you know, in my little wellies, going through the cowsheds, towards the cowsheds, and my wellies got stuck in the cowmack, and I just face planted. You know, thick mud. Yes. Right. That's me in little wellies. Right, I went to Brockwith School, and then the Royal Forest of Dean Grammar School, which was a merger of Bells and East Dean, wasn't it? But I left home at 16 because I thought this was such a dead hole. There was nothing to do. We did have a youth club, but there was no buses anywhere. Parents didn't drive their children off to, you know, here, there and everywhere. Most families only had one car, so I couldn't wait to get away. So I went to work as I went to Gloucester College to learn hairdressing training, and then I went to Cheltenham for a while to work, and then when I was 21 I went off to Israel to work it's a bit like a kibbutz, a moshav in Israel, and I was out there for 2.5 years. And eventually, when I came home to Brockwith, only because of the Camp David agreement, and they gave Israel, the whole of Israel back, the whole of the Sinai back to Egypt, then I came home. And the only place I could come home to was Woodspring Cottage. And I thought, oh, what a beautiful place, why did I ever leave here? I think you've got to go away to realise that sometimes. Right, I love travelling too. And when my Granny Williams, paternal grandmother, before she got married, she travelled to Canada because her brother emigrated out there. And it was quite a feat for a young woman to have travelled that far, I think, in about 1928, before she got married. And due to the power of the internet, oh, no, that's not it. That's me as a postie, sorry. Due to the power of the internet, I found the actual boat that she travelled on. This boat is called Montcalm. And if anybody knows that bungalow on the rocks that's called Montcalm, that is why it's called Montcalm. It's after the boat she travelled to Canada on. Oh. Right. Right. Dad had a passion for... there's me, Dad. Back to our dad. He had a passion for researching family history. And in his research, he has traced our family tree back to the 1600s in this area. And the name at the time was Hewlin. The Hewlin family appear in the earliest records of St Rebel's Church, and the majority of the family were Masons. So it's been suggested that they came with the Normans to help build the castles and the church. So I wonder if they had a hand, my ancestors, in building the church and castle. It's quite possible. Anyway, I've got one more story to tell you, which is a kind of connections and things going full circle. I want to take you back to Grancher Hunt wassailing his way around Brockway Common on his milk cart. Many years ago, who knows Jim Simpson? I know Lucy will, yeah. He lives up at White Line near Catbrook. I bumped into him and he said, have you ever heard of the Brockway Wassail? Knowing that I was into music and stuff. And I hadn't. So he gave me the lyrics and the music, and I did a bit of research, thankfully the internet again, and found a recording of it made in 1977, sung by a Charlie Williams who'd learnt it in around 1917 he'd learnt it as a boy. So I learnt it and sang it in all the local folk clubs and still sing it now at New Year. When I saw Jim at the end at the bread and cheese ceremony, the next time I saw him after we'd been doing this, I was thanking him and for alerting